Hey guys, welcome back to the Tukes and Tires YouTube channel. As always, I'm Zach, and this week we're building a full custom dual Lyell stainless exhaust kit with an X-pipe for the Gen 3 Hemi Gremmie. So let's get after it.
Hey, is that Timmy's?
Yeah, he's very Canada.
Alrighty guys, we already heard what we're trying to accomplish in today's video, but if you're new to the channel, this is my sister's 73 AMC Gremlin X that we jammed a Gen 3 Hemi into it. But if you're not up to date, there's a full playlist on this build, so definitely go check that out. I might leave a link on the screen here that you guys can go watch the rest of the videos. But in the last video, we actually got the motor and tranny situated for good. It's really tight in there, but it's not going anywhere, so that's pretty wicked. And we got a custom set of headers made up on this thing. I only made up the passenger side one in the last video, so I got the other one all finished up. You guys are gonna see that in a little bit once we actually get the car up in the air. But we're hoping to actually throw a full custom Lyells exhaust underneath this thing. It's gonna be a tight one with, you know, trying to get around the transmission. We're hoping to do an X-pipe on it and true duals all the way to the back. It's going to be a little tricky in the rear end situation, trying to get through there with the gas tank in the back, but I think Lyells has us covered for what we're going to need to actually make that happen. But we're going to take a trip actually to their new location, check out what they got going on there, and show you guys what we pick up from them once we actually get back. So let's hit the road and go get what we need. So we've made it back from Lyell's exhaust with some movie magic, and we got everything laid out on the ground here that we're gonna need for the Hemi Gremmie. But I just wanna give those guys over at Lyell's a huge shout out. They actually hooked us up with this whole exhaust system for the build. So if you guys are looking for any exhaust parts for your car, definitely hit them up. There's a link down below in the description. You know, they're going to have everything for any car or truck you're ever going to work on. Nothing's going to beat their mandrel bent tubing, their V-band clamps, or anything else they sell, because it is all top-notch quality stuff. And I got to say, this stuff welds together like butter. It is amazing. So we're going to start off here from the front, work our way back, kind of the way we're going to try to get it underneath this car, and then we're going to just kind of get the car in the air and go from there. So to start us off here, we have a couple of 90s. If you guys remember, I actually made the headers that they kind of went perfectly 90 down underneath the car. That was just the way it worked out best for me to work around the starter. So we're actually going to use these pipes here. There's already a V-band underneath the car that we're going to join to. We're going to put another V-band right here, kind of making it a dog leg just to make it a whole lot easier for me to take the headers out. And if this can come out of the way, then we can actually not have to take the rest of the exhaust system down if we ever have to kind of take the headers out and do something underneath there. So that's going to be pretty slick. Let's see what's happening. We got a couple of their O2 bungs. We have to only just weld one underneath. I grabbed two just because if I mess up one, at least we got a spare. We're going to be using some of their Muffler kickdown pipes to actually work around the transmission and try to get to the spot where I made the notches in the cross member, which you guys are going to see once we actually get underneath the car. We got a bunch of their hangers that we're going to put throughout the whole system so it'll hold itself up if you ever have to take a section of it out. We got one of their X pipe kits, so it comes with the 4 kind of kick out pipes. We can obviously, this is going to be kind of cut to fit. We're going to have to shorten these up to get these pipes to join where we want to from the front pipes. And then we're going to come, this is going to be placed kind of right by the tailstock just so that we get enough clearance for the drive shaft. These are going to run in a nice pocket that's underneath the floor to a set of their fully welded out stainless mufflers. These things are wicked. I have them on the C1 Chevelle, and if you haven't watched that project, that's my street legal stock car, and that car sounds absolutely wicked. Then from these fully welded out mufflers, we're going to go to another set of V-band clamps, just so that if we ever have to take the midsection out to take the transmission out, we can do that. Or if we have to take the tailpipes out, we can actually get them out separately. These tailpipes, I actually brought one with me that was underneath the car. Originally, it only had a single pipe, so we matched it up for the driver's side. And the A-body Mopar actually worked out the best, kind of how the curve went and the way it's going to shoot underneath the car. And then they just had matching tailpipes to go with that. We're going to have a little bit of a trick trying to work around the gas tank, especially on the driver or on the passenger side, trying to get through there just because it's a lot tighter. And what you guys will see once we actually get underneath the car, they ran the shocks kind of offset one side to the other. But I think we're going to make it happen, and it's going to be pretty sweet. This whole thing is all 2.5 inch, so it's going to have a good sound, and it's going to be able to fit in the tight spaces that we want it to. So we're actually going to get this thing up in the air, and then work our way from the front to the back. Lacey, you love Hemis, don't you? Yep. Here we go, guys. Alrighty guys, we got the Gremlin up in the air now. We can kind of see what we're working with underneath here. So I'm going to throw a video up on the screen, kind of the path that we're going to want to take from the headers to get towards the cross member. We're going to kind of make this like, I'm using the term dog leg because we're going to make a removable piece so that if I ever have to take out the headers or if I have to take out the starter, I can actually just drop this one piece and not take down the whole rest of the exhaust system. So like I said over when we were showing all the pipes on the ground, we're going to start with this 90-degree piece just because of the way I made the headers come down. We kind of have to get underneath, and this is just going to work out the best. So we're actually going to throw V-band clamps onto this, so we're going to put one on the bottom. We already have the one on the header, and we're going to kind of come halfway on the transmission pan. I think that's kind of going to work out the best. Just so that even if maybe if I ever have to take out the transmission, you know, it just makes everything a whole lot easier. But I do have a couple tips and tricks that I'm going to show you guys what I do to actually cut the pipe. So we're going to meet you guys over at the bench, and we're going to start cutting some stuff up. So here we go. Alrighty guys, we can see that we have our piece in the vise here, and you can see we have a mark on it already. I just kind of lined it up roughly underneath the car where we need to cut this off. And if you guys aren't interested in this information whatsoever, just skip ahead to where we actually start getting to business. But this might help you guys out if you're doing your own exhaust system at home. I've done this in the past just to make my life a whole lot easier. I don't have a bandsaw or anything, so obviously I'm just doing everything with cutoff wheels. And this is really going to apply to where you're going to be doing butt joints with pipes. Because obviously you're going to want it to fit nice and tight together, but you don't want huge gaps so you're not filling a whole bunch. So what I've done is I've actually, if you have hole saws, this is where it's, you know, really going to come in handy. But if you just take a piece of plywood and you just rip a hole saw into it, it gives you a really nice jig to where you can actually slide it onto your pipe and actually mark a nice straight line all the way around. That way, if you're going to be using a grinder like I am, you can actually follow your Sharpie mark and get a really nice cut. We're going to be going into the V-band on this, so we have a little bit of wiggle room, but we still want it as nice and tight as possible. I don't have a 2.5 inch hole saw, so what we're going to actually be using is 2 of these 3-bolt flanges actually bolted together. I didn't, like I said, I didn't have a hole saw, and this was the closest thing I had to 2.5 inches. So we're going to slide this thing on here, mark our line as straight as possible. I left a lot of material here just because we might have to change our angle just to get our pipe to where we want it to be. But I think we can, you know, with the tools that we have, we can make it happen. So we're going to start cutting this thing up and hopefully get it fit underneath the car. So here we go. Alrighty guys, well you saw that we got this dog leg for the passenger side all welded up and it turned out pretty slick. Definitely a struggle trying to figure out which way it was all going to bend once I put the heat into it. But I think we got it pretty good. And if you guys are wondering what I was rubbing onto that while I was welding, I'll tell you about that in just a little bit once we get to the tailpipes. But I think we got to make up this other side, and I think with a little bit of movie magic, we have the other side installed and in there. That one was a little bit of a trick just because we were working around the starter and trying to get it kicked over. Hopefully you guys can see that on the screen. I might try to get a beauty shot of both of them up in here. But now we have them both at the same level for where our V-band clamps are, so we can start actually working our way back. And I think what we're gonna do next is actually work on the X-pipe. So I'll get you guys set up so you can see that a little bit better, and we'll start figuring that out. Alrighty guys, well it's a new day and you see that we have our dog legs bolted up in there with our V-band clamps. Bear with me guys, it's kind of a little bit hard to show everything. I set this up here so I didn't really want to take it down. But I just wanted to mention, just make sure that you bolt in your V-band clamps pretty tight so that if you're doing something similar to what I'm doing, that they don't kind of move around on you when you start working on the rest of the exhaust system. But you can see we got some things set up under here, and we're trying to get to the point where we can actually start putting in the X, but we're using those tailpipe drop downs to actually zigzag around the transmission and get into the notches in the cross member that I made. So you can see here, I just have this kind of 2x8 kind of brace thing holding them up there. We actually used that for doing oil changes, but it actually worked out just perfect that I could set the tailpipes on it. They are just a little bit too tall, so once we actually get them tacked in place, I am just going to rotate them down just a little bit. But luckily enough, with the V-band clamps, we can actually do that. I did take a tape measure and make sure that they're centered in the frame rails. I did the same thing with the dog legs here, just because even though our motor is off to one side, I'm trying to make the exhaust system look as symmetrical as possible. So I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to get these tacked in place. You guys don't need to see me do that, but trust me, we're going to get them in there, and then we can start working on this X and figure out kind of where we want to place it, and then figure out the rest of the stuff as we start working our way back. So I'm going to get this tacked in place so we can get this board out of the way, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty guys, we can see that we have both of our tailpipe drop down pieces tacked in place, and then you kind of see I just threw a tape measure in between both of the pipes where they kind of come out at the back, and we have about 10 and 3/16. So now you can see on the table here, I have our X-pipe kit just laid out. They did both come about this length, but I cut just the front section down just because we didn't need that much pipe. But now what we need to do is we need to try to get our pieces to actually line up to what's in the car. So I just kind of laid this out just because when you kind of look at these, the pipes, they do come off pretty straight off of both sides of the X, but I just want to try to get it as close as possible to straight. So obviously I don't need all of this pipe going here because our tailpipe drop downs kind of go really far out the back. We're gonna have to chop them out off anyways. So I just marked these ones off straight, and now what we need to do is we just need to cut off the back section to bring these both in until we get it to roughly about that 10 and 3/16. So I think like right now between both of them I have 11 and a half. So I will just keep cutting off the back of this until I get both of my points here where my Sharpie marks are, till I probably get it close to 10, and then these I can actually slip in and out so I get it actually right where I want it to be. In the back, we're gonna have to also chop these down. We're just probably gonna throw that on a time lapse for you guys to get that to fit underneath the car. I do need to figure out hangers to support all this because it's not all gonna hang off of the headers. But I'm gonna get to cutting and welding some pipes up, and then we'll meet you guys back once we're ready to get the mufflers on. So let's get welding. there we have it, guys. We got the X all welded up and in the car, and it's looking absolutely wicked. You can see that we also welded some hangers on here. I'm going to show those a little bit better once we actually get towards the back of the car, because that's where they're really going to shine, with the tailpipes and the mufflers, kind of with all the weight back there. I just want to make sure I got them on here now, so this part of the exhaust system was nice and sturdy, so we didn't have to worry about, you know, it kind of bending down once we started messing with the rest of it. So basically, you saw from everything that I drew up kind of a template on my table, just because we took that measurement in between these two pipes that were already in the car, just so that I could work these legs down to actually fit. You know, it's a lot of back and forth, just, you know, cutting a little bit, checking it, you know, it just takes time to get it perfect. But when I was welding this up, you know, you don't want to put a bunch of heat into it, or when you're doing it, you want to make sure you kind of do it evenly. And I was only able to weld this around in the car about 3/4 around this pipe on both sides. And with it kind of being the span for how long these legs are hanging off, you know, you're going to get a little bit of deflection with the heat when you're actually welding it up with the MIG welder, because it, you know, it's just pumping heat into these pipes. So I welded as much as I could, took it out of the car and finished the welds, and I actually stuck this pipe back up in it while it was hot, just so that if it was going to flex around, that hopefully it would relax back to where I had it originally. Luckily enough, I didn't have anything like that, so it lined up perfectly with this. Once a heat cycle goes through this whole exhaust, it's going to move around anyways, but, you know, just trying to make it so it goes back together now is the game plan. We also left about 5/8 in between this drive shaft yoke and the X pipe. Obviously, we're going to get a lot more movement on the drive shaft towards the rear end, so once we actually go to put the back legs in, we just want to make sure that we're going to have clearance there so it can travel up in between. Over here, hopefully we're not going to have anything wrong, but if we do, it's going to self-clearance and then we'll fix it later. But I'm going to get these pipes cut up here that are actually going to go towards the mufflers. Nothing special, it's just one cut. So I'm going to do that off camera, get them up in the car so we can actually start messing around with the mufflers. So I'll meet you guys back there. So just before we get working out underneath the back of the Gremlin over there, I figured we might as well save some time at the bench here and get our V-band clamps welded onto these mufflers. But just before we do that, I'm going to throw a video up on the screen of those pipes we added to the X pipe just to finish that off. Turned out absolutely perfect, and we have a bunch of room for the drive shaft. So I'm really happy with that. But the mufflers that we're going to be using on the Gremlin are Lyell's B52 mufflers. They are a side entrance to a center exit. I have them on the C1 Chevelle, and if you don't know about that car, that's my street legal stock car. Definitely go check that playlist out. They sound absolutely wild with the LS, so I can't wait to hear what the Gremlin's going to sound like with the Hemi. It's going to be absolutely perfect. Obviously, you've been seeing I've been welding this whole thing out with the MIG welder, and you know, my buddy Evan from Enemy Metalworks, he's a professional welder, and he told me that this isn't right. I've been using, obviously, stainless steel wire in this because this is a full stainless exhaust system, and he told me I should be using pure argon. I've been using a argon mix. So from what I've seen, it just throws a little bit more slag. Obviously the argon mix is cheaper than pure argon, but if you're a professional welder, definitely comment down below if I should be using pure argon. It's been holding up just fine for me, but just so that we don't get our V-band clamps all gummed up with like slag and stuff, because obviously it'll stick to this like crazy. I've just been using some nozzle gel, so I just like load this thing up in all the little nooks and crannies with the nozzle gel and then weld it to my pipes. Obviously making sure right where I'm welding I'm trying to keep clean, but it's definitely been keeping a good job of keeping these V-bands nice and clean, and it's just a little tip just that I could pass on to you, that hopefully if you're doing the exact same thing I am and you don't feel like trying to buy a TIG welder, or you know, you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on argon, you know, for me it's been a wicked tip to keep these things looking perfect. So I'm gonna get this cut off here, get this welded on, and then we're gonna meet you out back underneath the car and see about getting these in place and trying to get those tailpipes to fit, and probably get a hanger on or two. So here we go. Alrighty guys, we got those V-band clamps all welded onto our mufflers, and you can see I kind of just got them all jigged up in place with that same board we used up front. I just went ahead and actually fully welded them out. just because I did a bunch of measuring just to get them kind of centered in between the yoke here on the rear end, just so that we had clearance for our drive shaft. But I figured I'd give you guys just a little tutorial on bending up these hangers that Lyell sells. You can kind of see I already have one in place, and we actually just drilled holes kind of into the factory location where the rear seat belts for the rear seat kind of go, just because I know that's nice and thick and I know that it can handle the weight. And that way I can get rid of this factory hanger that was for the exhaust, so we have a bunch of room for our fuel lines once we get there. But I'm gonna meet you guys over at the bench and show you guys how easy it is to bend these things up and put them together, and then we can see about working out the pipes. What, Lacey? What's going on? She's angry just because she can't see the camera. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to get these hangers together, because when Lyells ships them to you, they're going to be in two separate parts. So you're going to have to attach the rod portion to the rubber hanger. So I'm not sure if they still stock this other one. This is one of their older style hangers. I've had that left over from another exhaust system that I did. So I'm going to show you guys how to put that one on as well as with the one that we're using on the Gremlin. So this one's pretty cinchy. So all we're going to do is we're going to use some lubrication, just some WD-40, and then we're going to shove it into the hole which way we want it to go. Just kind of use both hands, push it through, and it's on. Just as easy as that. And then with this other style one, obviously if you try to shove it in the short way, you're never going to hook it around. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to shove it in through the long way, all the way, and then you're going to kind of pull and twist at the same time, and then you got it on. It's just as easy as that. So now what we're going to do, once we have the right hanger on that we're going to be using, we're going to go try to put it in place where we want to bolt the hanger. We're going to mark where our first bend is, and then we're going to get to bending. So I'm going to get you guys set up just a little bit differently here so I can actually get this thing bent and show you how I do it, and then we'll see about getting them welded in the car. So here we go. Alrighty guys, now that we have our hanger put together and we have it marked for where we want to bend it, all I'm going to do is you got to remember kind of which way you want it to be bent. So when I had it in the car, I think I had this dangling this way. So I'm going to actually flip it around, make sure I have it kind of like 90 degrees, and I'm going to put it to where my Sharpie mark is. If we mess up, we can always bend it back. It's not really an issue, we'll just crush it in the vise here. And then I'm just going to take just a tube, just a little bit longer. You grab it on here, and you just give it a couple good yanks, and you get a bend on it. That was probably too much, but I'll go check it in the car, and then if I got to straighten it out, I'll just clamp it in the vise, and then we go from there. I'm going to go check this out. I'm going to mark it for here where I just want the little hook to be to grab the pipe. So I just got this back from in the car. I just marked it kind of right where the bend starts. I'm going to start a little bit higher up just to give this a little hook, and you're going to see what I mean probably when we do the hangers in the back. That one's going to have more of an aggressive hook that actually grabs it. You could cut this off straight and actually just weld it straight onto the side of the pipe in there, but I like to do just a little bend on it just so I know like the weld's not going to break, but even if it did, the hanger is still going to support the weight of it. So I just got this up a little bit. I'm just going to whack it just a little bit just to start a little hook, and then I'm going to move my way up just ever so slowly, making sure I got my hanger somewhat straight. So I think it's going to look something like that. On the back side, I don't have as much rod to actually kind of hook underneath, so it's just going to be a little bit, just makes me feel a little bit better so that I can weld just a little bit more around the pipe, and I'm kind of supporting it by the innards of the muffler and just not the outer case. So we're going to get this bolted up. I'm going to weld that in quick, and then we can start making up the rest of those pipes. Well guys, you saw that we bent that hanger up and I got it all welded in place, and the muffler's super sturdy, so that's awesome. I think we're just going to jump right into it, making this tailpipe that's going to go over the rear end. So I'm going to just start cutting this piece up, getting it to fit, put you guys on a time lapse, and finish this whole thing off. So here we go. guys, we've got the whole exhaust system all finished off. You just saw all the beauty shots of it. It's been definitely a task to get this all underneath this car. There's not a lot of real estate underneath this thing to work with, especially kind of where the mufflers go. So I did my best to try to fit everything underneath this. I wanted to try to do true duals. We could have done just a Y going into one, but it definitely looks pretty wicked with both tailpipes going out the back over there. So you saw that we got the one made up there, and we got the hanger on, and then I just mirrored that side with the other side. It was definitely pretty tricky trying to make both sides look as symmetrical as possible and trying to work around the shock on the passenger side just because they offset the shocks. If anybody knows why they do that, definitely comment down below. I've always been curious. I don't know. Are they trying to get different wrap on the rear end or something, like different shock waves? I don't know. Let me know if you know why they do that. If it was me, I'd just put them both on the same side. But yeah, this exhaust turned out pretty wicked. There are a couple things I need to do yet. I need to figure out where the O2 sensor is going to go, like for the wideband. I really don't want to put it on the driver's side just because I don't want to, you know, have to deal with it with the starter if it's over there, and I can't stick it off the other side because of all my shifter linkage that's going to be over there. So I think I'm just going to throw it into the passenger side, just try to figure out a spot where it works out the best. I don't really think it matters which side it goes into. I think as long as it's in there. And I think, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but just in the cross member here, I just had self-tappers. So I need to, once I'm going to take all of this down and I need to take the transmission out yet, I'm going to actually drill that out and put some riv nuts in there. I use riv nuts in the back just to hold the tailpipes up. So hopefully that should be, you know, perfectly fine in this cross member just to hold this section up. But if you guys are definitely looking to do an exhaust kit like this, hit up Lyells. They have everything you're ever going to need, and you can see just with some simple tools at home what you can do in your home garage. Obviously I have a hoist, so it makes it a little bit easier, but you could, if it was me and if I didn't have a hoist, I'd definitely be doing this just from underneath on jack stands. It would just take a little bit longer, but you could definitely recreate this at your home shop. So I want to give a huge shout out to everybody at Lyells for, you know, hooking me up with this. All the guys and gals over there, they have a wicked shop, so please hit the link down below, check out what they have for sale, and buy something for your ride, and let them know I sent you. But I think that's going to do it for this video, guys. This kit turned out pretty wicked. I'm planning a whole bunch of things to do on the car so that we can actually get this thing fired up. I really wanted to get it fired up in this video, but obviously I don't have a fuel system and I don't have any wiring in the car, so you guys are just going to have to wait to actually hear what this thing's going to sound like once we fire it up. It's going to be so wicked. I think maybe in the next video we're going to actually go into the fuel system, so if you guys are curious about that, stick around for that. But hey, we're always up to something new around here. So thanks for watching, guys. If you made it this point in the video, I really appreciate all you guys subscribing and watching. So as always, guys, we'll catch you next time, and don't forget to salute the beaver.